According to the most recent installments of the Twitter files, the FBI was in constant communication with the tech media giant prior to Elon Musk's acquisition of the company. We now have confirmation that following the 2016 election, the FBI created a social media task force to monitor the online chatter of everyday Americans. This unit expanded to include up to 80 agents collaborating with Twitter to suppress accounts with views they labeled as, quote, misinformation. The Bureau repeatedly requested moderation even of low follower accounts, parody accounts, and the accounts of average Americans. Joining me now to discuss this is former FBI Special Agent Jonathan Gilliam. He's also a former Navy SEAL and the current president of the Navy SEALs Fund. Jonathan, good to see you today.
Good to be with you.
Now, it appears the FBI was not just monitoring social media chatter, which I assume they've always done for a variety of law enforcement reasons, but that they were in contact with Twitter and encouraging them to stop certain conversations and communications that weren't criminal in nature, but they just disagreed with it. What's your reaction to all this?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's very interesting. By the way, I'm no longer the president of Navy SEALs Fund. That's been handed off to another incredible American. So I don't want to take anything away from
Apologies.
them. But that's all right. When we talk about, though, what we see here at Twitter is the fact that we are seeing the FBI and the federal government, because you have to remember, let's start at the top down. The Democrat Party and the leftist socialists in this nation are very oppressive. They want to make people think the way they do, and they want to block people from spreading information that they don't agree with. With that being said, we see that there are certain elements of the United States government that are doing that exactly to the letter, in the way that the Democrat Party and leftists in general on social media have pushed forward. So the same thing they get upset about is the same thing that the tops of the FBI and the DOJ get upset about. That's evidence part number one. Now, when we look at the fact that they went from kind of overwatch and watching social media platforms primarily for terrorist reasons, watching to see where there was chatter going on, if they could detect any type of operation that was coming. They moved from an observation platform to actually telling social media platforms what they would like to be pulled off. And in effect, they were dictating what these social media platforms, and it's not just Twitter, but we have evidence at Twitter, that they're telling them, we don't want this on there. And Twitter having the same ideological stance as these leftists in the government were basically doing the government's bidding to oppress the First Amendment and to censor free speech. And so that's what's occurred. What's
Jonathan?
Interesting, though, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, very, very quickly, I want to. Is the point at which they crossed the line when they went from just monitoring conversations, which I think they do for a variety of reasons, because there's people, you want to know if their chatter level increases, because that could be an indication of something they need to know about in their legitimate law enforcement enterprises. But did they cross the line when they went from monitoring to actually influencing and dictating what should and shouldn't be allowed, irrespective of criminal implications?
Well, we have to realize that there's a reasonable expectation of privacy that people have in certain things, such as direct messages, where we know that even in direct messages where you're trying to communicate with someone privately, that those have been pulled down. And there's actually people that have been, their accounts have been deleted because of direct messages. So we know that it goes far beyond just the Twitter files and what they're saying that has happened on Twitter. So wherever this reasonable expectation of privacy occurs, the government cannot just go in. It's the same as back in the day when we had phone booths. Once somebody stepped into that phone booth, the government could not actively listen inside that phone booth unless they had a warrant. So now if somebody was screaming and hollering, a police officer was standing right outside, then they could use that information for a case. But the same thing occurs here. If people are putting this out in the open, and Twitter by and large is wide open. Some people protect their accounts, but by and large, it's wide open. So they can observe what they want to observe as long as there's no reasonable expectation of privacy and they don't have a warrant. But when they cross over and they start telling them, we want you to look at this and we want this taken down, that's no different than me going to a source and saying, man, it sure would be great if this drug dealer died and was no longer a problem for us. And then the source went and killed them, right? Because I didn't tell them, hey, go kill this guy. But I said it'd be a great thing if, wink, wink, if they were dead, and they went and did it. Now they're acting as an element of the federal government. And that's what's occurring here. It's a wink and a nod, but every time they ask them to do it, they do it, that specific thing.
Jonathan, we've only got about 40 seconds left, but now that this is coming to light, do you expect to see changes in the way the FBI operates?
No, not at all. It's not going to, this won't matter as long as the leftists are in charge and the Republican Party is full of careerists that don't do anything. What I would love to see, and we're probably not going to see, is the fact that what we've seen with Twitter is an example of across the board at every social media platform, because pretty much they all originate from Silicon Valley, which is very leftist. So we're probably not going to see that, but that is where the problem is. It's getting worse on Facebook and YouTube right now as this stuff goes on Twitter.
Yeah, we do know that a lot of change is happening in Twitter, but there's the questions, of course, arise. What's going on still in these other places? Jonathan, thank you so much for your time today. I know we'll talk down the road.
You got it. Thank you very much.